Hey guys, welcome to another episode here at Netsuo Trails EDC. I hope you guys had a very Merry Christmas. I hope Santa brought you all kinds of cool stuff underneath your tree and in your stocking. And I'd like to wish all of you a very Happy New Year.
Merry New Year!
Now today I'm going to be discussing this interesting little flipper from Boker. Boker's been around since the 17th century. They started as a tool maker and then they graduated to making knives and swords. And it was said that by 1839 they were producing 2,000 sabers a week for use in various wars. So Boker as a brand has been around for a very long time. They have a rich and storied history. And one of the things that they're known for is their wide variety of cutting tools for different applications, whether it be kitchen knives, folders, fixed blades. If you're a budding enthusiast or you're just somebody who wants a decent quality knife, chances are if you look into Boker, they're going to have something for you. Now, several years ago, Boker teamed up with knife maker Lucas Burnley to produce this model, which is one of their more famous folders, and this is the Boker Burnley Kwaiken. Now, this particular model is actually a Framelock, unlike the originals, which were liner lock. Now let's get into some of the specs on this guy. So what you're working with here is a 3.5 inch D2 steel blade, not the VG10 stainless that the original liner locks come with. It's running on a variant of the IKBS ball bearing system, which we'll talk about that here in a minute, and it has a stainless steel frame with a frame lock. Let's go ahead and get a weight on this guy with my new little scale here, and we are looking at 3.61 ounces. So the price point on this guy is going to be about $100. And just as a side note, this is not a brand new blade. This was acquired in a trade with my brother-in-law, Ethan. So thank you, Ethan, for that. But yeah, you can tell it's been used. So if you're kind of looking at the blade and looking at the patina on it and going, I don't know if I'm going to pay $100 for that, don't worry. Yours will not look like this brand new. Now let's talk about some of the features that make this version of the Burnley Kwaiken so different from its liner lock counterparts.
Same, but different. But still same.
One of the first things that you will notice with the Framelock version is, of course, the frame. And it is machined completely out of stainless steel. Now, typically, I don't much care for stainless steel frames on my knives. On a lot of the other brands, they look kind of cheap. There's some Kershaws that come to mind, but Boker did a very, very good job when they machined this particular frame. They added some nice lines to it, and they stonewashed it beautifully. Another thing you'll notice that's very unique as far as flippers go is the flipper tab. It does look kind of backwards. However, another improvement that they made over the original flipper tab was the same shape, but it didn't have this jimping down here in the front of it. Now they added jimping to this one, which really helps you get traction whenever you sling that blade out from the folded position. One of the biggest complaints about the original Kwaiken, which I think they've remedied here, was how it sit in the pocket. The original had a lanyard hole that went through the frame, and it was right about here where these screws on the pocket clip are. And what that did was they had to move the pocket clip down to make room for it, and it sat comically high in the pocket, almost like that. Now, they went with a different design here that allowed them to actually move the pocket clip up, and instead of a through the frame hole, they went with a lanyard pin system, which I think looks a lot sleeker than the other design. It's going to look really good with a lanyard hanging out of your pocket if you're the type of guy that likes to do, or gal that likes to do that. Now, this being a frame lock design, it actually has a much slimmer carry profile than the liner lock versions. You don't have a slab of titanium or carbon fiber or whatever it is on top of the frame itself, so it's going to be a lot slimmer in the pocket. It's going to move in and out or pull in and out of the pocket a lot easier. But the caveat to that is the lock itself. It takes up half of the lock face here. So if you're not used to frame lock knives, you may find whenever you first handle it that you're having trouble opening it. And one of the reasons for that is you've got your finger actually on the lock bar itself. To remedy that, you just watch your hand placement, take it off of the lock bar, and then it flies out very easily.
I'm flying!
I also want to spend some time talking about this blade shape. I absolutely love this blade shape. Now, Lucas Burnley is kind of known for having kind of a traditional Japanese blade influence with his knives. He seems to love the traditional designs, and this is actually a traditional tanto design. instead of mostly when people think of tanto designs, they think of kind of the more angular designs, blade shape, and that's actually an American tanto version. This is traditional. This is like a traditional Japanese tanto shape, and it's done very beautifully. I love how it's got the slight swedge in the middle, and actually at first glance it looks like this blade is kind of upswept, or yeah, curved up. But if you take a look, that it is completely flat, and there's hardly any transition from the frame to the spine. It's a very beautifully done blade shape. It slices very well. This is made of D2 steel, which is not stainless like, say, VG10, but it's going to hold an edge a lot longer than the VG10 versions of the Kwaiken. So, very good blade shape there. Another thing I want to touch on is the bearing system, or the pivot system, what the pivot rides on. Now, there's a lot of different pivot systems out there. You've got some that have Teflon. As far as flippers go, you have Teflon, you have the bronze washers. This one is a bearing system, and it's actually a non-captured bearing system. And what that means is that there are channels cut out in each side of on the inside of the frame, as well as on each side of the blade, that allow these little tiny ball bearings to move around freely. And that creates less friction than, say, a captured bearing system, and allows the blade to glide more smoothly out of the pivot. Now, one of the caveats to that pivot system is that if you ever have to disassemble this knife and take it apart for, say, you got a bunch of gunk up in there in the pivot and in the bearings, and it's just it doesn't move as smoothly as it used to, and you got to take it apart and you got to get to those internals and clean them out. You're going to want to do this over a tray or inside of a plastic bag, because once you take it apart, because those bearings are not captured, they're going to fall out everywhere. And if you lose one or two, you're pretty much SOL. I don't know if Boker will replace any, but you definitely want to make sure that you have something to hold and catch those bearings if you ever have to disassemble this for any maintenance reason whatsoever. Now, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this video, but first I want to talk about usage. What would you use this knife for? What is the best suited task for this knife? There's a couple that come to mind. I'm hesitant to call this a gentleman's folder, simply because it is so big. This is, 3.5 inches. That's something when you whip this out and say you're in the office or something like that, you might intimidate a few people.
Oh my God!
But that being said, if you wanted to wear it to, for like special occasions or something like that, it's a very beautiful knife. It's machined very beautifully. It doesn't look cheap. It's very sleek, has a good profile. So, gentleman's knife, possibly. One thing I would not use this for is a work knife. Now, the reason I say that is not because the blade or anything like that is not capable of handling the work, but because of the bearing system, it's very susceptible to getting dirt and grime in it, and you're going to have to clean it a lot more often if you take this to work. And like I said, disassembling it is going to be a pain. Another reason is that when you're bearing down on this and having to do a lot of, hard tasks, and you're having to bear down on it, these angular shapes, the angular shape of it can get kind of sharp, and it's a little bit uncomfortable. So this isn't something that you're going to want to take out and work all day with if you're having to cut like hard straps, or you're having to do a lot of cutting tasks, a lot of heavy duty construction type work. I don't think that this is something you want to carry with you. Also, the reason for that is the lack of grip. This is a very, very slick knife. You can see there's not really a whole lot of grip here on the frame itself, and there's no jimping right up here where you usually see it in some of the more, heavy duty use folders. So really, all in all, I would consider this kind of a weekend carry knife. You're just going into town, just everyday carry outside of work, nothing that you're really going to have to do any hard work with, just basic EDC tasks. But what I think this folder really excels at is, I don't know if this is an actual term, but I'm going to coin it, restaurant carry. Yes, that's right. If you live in an area that, people aren't quite that intimidated by knives, if you're going to go to Applebee's or something like that and eat a steak, this is what I would carry. And as a matter of fact, I have carried it to restaurants like that. Just the blade shape and the profile is extremely good for just cutting into that steak. Now, a lot of people have reservations about cutting onto a ceramic plate because ceramic does tend to dull the knife, but it is a tool. You take it, you go home, and you sharpen it, no big deal. But restaurant carry is definitely what this excels at. And Boker actually has a fixed blade version that they specifically market as steak knives. So apparently this design has been popular enough for that type of use that they went ahead and made a steak knife version of this blade. So guys, that's going to wrap this video up. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what you see, please hit that like and subscribe button. I will have more content for you. I'm actually going to have an unboxing video for you here soon that I'm really excited about. It's an EDC item that's a little bit different for me, but I'm looking forward to trying out. But anyways, thank you guys. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.